It's either the end of the year or the beginning of the year, depending on when I post this, but either way, this is typically the time when people think about New Year's resolutions. Now, I've never really made New Year's resolutions for myself, but lately I have set a lot of sort of general personal goals for myself, and for the first time ever, thanks largely to simplifying my life through minimalism, I'm actually achieving them, which is huge. So today, I thought I would share my own personal goals for myself, talk a little bit about my process for setting those goals, and see if any of them need revisions as we go into the new year. I feel like I talk a lot about goals, or I at least harp on their importance, because understanding your goals, I think, is critical for staying motivated in order to achieve them, but it's also important to truly understand your goals so that you can sort of dissect them and arrange them into a series of actionable steps that you can take in order to achieve them. One of my favorite quotes is by a guy named Peter Drucker, who said, "You can't manage what you don't measure." So I think it's incredibly important to first deeply understand your goals, to then break those down into a series of actionable steps that you can take strides towards achieving, and then to honestly evaluate whether or not you are making significant progress towards those goals. And that's really the framework that I use for setting and evaluating my own goals. It's story time. Are you ready for story time? About 6 months, maybe 9 months ago, I started hearing about this concept called visualization. Don't leave, don't be afraid, just bear with me for a second. So, I am no expert in visualization techniques by any means, but what I learned about it during my brief exposure to it is that there are some people who believe that you can identify your goals and then spend a little bit of time each day visualizing in great detail those goals coming true. And if you do this long enough, it will manifest. Now, disappointingly, none of the people that I heard talking about visualization actually said anything about how if one spends a significant amount of time each day really longing for this thing to come true, that one might actually do any of the things necessary to achieve them. But if you can do this, if you can just will stuff into existence, then kudos, but you're probably not watching this video. You're probably on some private island surrounded by 8 clones of Heidi Klum drinking a pina colada that never depletes. I couldn't do that, but I do have to give this technique credit because it was really the catalyst that got me thinking about my own goals. So, what are my goals? I keep my goals written on my phone so they are easily accessible and so that I can sort of go back and look at them and see whether or not I'm tracking towards them and whether or not they need to be revised easily. And my goals, as they are written right now, are 1, I seek adventure. 2, I save money and invest it wisely. 3, I work diligently. And 4, I go to sleep early and wake up early. Now, another thing I have to credit the visualization people with is that I now try to form my goals in a positive light. I try to avoid words like don't or more or less. I try to make my goals positive. Now, a lot of these are very sort of high-level goals or very lofty goals. I save money and invest it wisely. That's a big thing that I'll probably be doing for the rest of my life. But now that I've identified that high-level goal, which is again the first step in my process, then the next step is to break that goal down into an actionable series of steps to achieve it. And that actionable series of steps is probably something that will continue to evolve with me in perpetuity forever, but the high-level goal itself will stay the same. So now that I have my high-level goals, let's walk through an example of how to break down one of those goals into actionable steps. Let's stick with the money example because that's fun. So I save money and invest it wisely. How might that be broken down into next steps or sort of short-term goals? Well, how that goal gets broken down into shorter-term goals depends largely on where you stand financially at that moment in time. So when I set this as my goal, I had to go out and do some homework and really figure out where I stood financially and what my sort of financial health baseline was. If you know nothing about personal finance and you're interested in it, I do have a video on personal finance best practices, sort of beginner tips, and I'll link that in the description down below if you want to check it out. But those are a lot of the practices that I did to figure out where I stood financially so that I could make better decisions about what appropriate next steps for me would be. Some of the sort of short-term goals that I set for myself for this high-level goal were to increase my automatic 401k savings, to convince my husband to do the same, and to implement a budgeting system that would allow us to overpay our mortgage. Have I achieved these things? Yes. Did they happen overnight? Not at all. Each of these sort of sub-goals themselves took a series of sort of micro steps to make happen. Now, something that I'm a big fan of to get these sort of tiny steps done is what I call the one task a day method. Now, I've also made an entire video about this. Sorry, I'll link it down below. But the basic concept is that I have a whiteboard on my refrigerator where I write 1 or 2 tasks that I need to do for the day. And that keeps me from being overwhelmed by a mountain of things that I need to do. And it's nice because I can see the progress that I'm making towards those goals. After I've identified what my goals are, and then I've broken them down into smaller steps that I can then make progress towards, my third and final step is to revisit my goals periodically to make sure I'm actually making strides to achieve them. So let's go back to my goals. 1, I seek adventure. Am I achieving that? Well, I'm going to give this one a check mark this year because my husband and I have actually done quite a bit of traveling. That's actually sort of the impetus for me setting this goal in the first place. This past year, we've traveled to Seattle, New York, the UK, and we actually have a couple of ski trips coming up as well. So I seek adventure, I think gets a check. I save money and invest it wisely. I think it does get a check as well. There's a lot of stuff that my husband and I have done over the last couple of months that have put us in a lot better financial shape. So that one, I think gets a check as well. I'm also going to keep it. I'm going to keep the first 2. Third, I work diligently. That one is kind of in the middle. There are definitely some things that I've done professionally to sort of advance my career, but there are still a lot of other things that I know I can still make progress to. So I'm going to keep that one, but that one gets a sort of middle face. And finally, I go to sleep early and wake up early. This goal is a little bit different than the others. The others are super high level, and this one is a bit more granular and prescriptive, but I put it there because it's something that I wanted to give attention to. It's something that I really wanted to focus on and make sure that it became a habit, and so I wrote it out as an actual goal, and I have done a lot of things to really change my sleeping habits. It's been a huge game changer to do so, so I'm going to keep that one on there for now. But that's a goal that I think I can maybe strike off in a couple of months' time after it becomes a rote habit. So I think all of my goals look good and they're all things that I'm going to keep for now, but there are 2 things that I want to add to this list. The first is I care for my home. Lately, ever since my last 30-day minimalism game, I have been cleaning for fun. That's something I never thought I would say, but I think now because it's a lot easier to maintain my home and to keep it shining and clean, it's a lot more fun to actually do it. It's a lot faster to do it. It takes about 5-10 minutes in an evening to really maintain my home, and that's something I've already started doing, but it's something I want to continue to do, and so I'm going to write it in as a new goal. Again, sort of like going to sleep early and waking up early, it's something I just want to sort of make sure becomes a rote habit and something that I continue to do. Maybe it'll be something I can strike off later, but for now I'm going to keep that one on there. And then finally, I'm adding one that says I use natural materials. Now, I originally said I do not use plastic, and then to make it positive, I went back and changed it to I use natural materials. But the sort of reason behind that is that I've just become kind of disgusted with the amount of plastic that enters my home or that I use day to day. And I think the practice of minimalism has made me notice my use of consumables in general, but plastics in particular. And it's something that I've wanted to change for a long time. And there have been a couple of little things here and there that I've done, but it hasn't become something that's, I don't know, second nature, that's really a part of what I do. There are still things like shampoo, and the coffee that I buy at the store comes in a paper bag that's lined with plastic. I should just get my own glass container and fill it with coffee whenever I go to the store. So there are some habits that aren't fully developed that I really want to work on moving forward, and so I'm going to add that to my list as well. So my final goals moving into the new year are: I seek adventure, I save money and invest it wisely, I work diligently, I go to sleep early and wake up early, I care for my home, and I use natural materials. All right, this was just me babbling for a really long time, but I hope that hearing some of my goals and my process for setting goals can help some of you who are thinking about New Year's resolutions. Again, it's that time when even if we don't want to set them, we're all thinking about them. So if you are inspired to set some of your own, I hope this process or some of my examples can help you out in that department. It's going to be it for me. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Happy New Year, and I'll see you next time.